Night covered the blue planet like a blanket. The stars looked calm. Far above them, an alien destroyer slid out of dark space and pointed its long nose at Earth. The Invincible Empire had come again. They had taken 100 worlds. They had broken 1,000 fleets. They believed humans would kneel like all the others. Commander Kethor stood at the window of the alien ship and watched the lights on the planet turn slowly. His skin was silver and cold. His voice was colder. "Scan the surface," he said. "Find the loud places. Crush will begin there." A young officer bent over a glowing screen. "Many signals, Commander, much noise, simple machines, broadcast towers, heat clouds, primitive." Kethor's thin mouth curved. "Primitive is quick to break." On Earth, deep under an old power station, the ground shook with the hum of hidden machines. Lieutenant Mara Khan walked down a narrow hall toward a steel door. Her footsteps echoed. Her hands were steady, but her heart was a storm. She pushed the door and stepped into a room full of screens, cables, and tired faces. 10 people looked up at her. Some were soldiers, some were scientists. All of them were scared and stubborn. Dr. Ilyas, a thin man with sharp eyes, stood over a large table that was covered with a map of Earth and space. Small lights blinked across the map like fireflies. "You're late," he said. "I was saying." "Goodbye," Mara said. "Ah," Ilyas replied softly. "A dangerous habit." Mara looked at the clock on the wall. "How long until they finish their first scan?" "Minutes," Ilyas said. "Maybe less." Mara nodded. She turned to the team. "You know the plan, no hero moves, no extra noise. We stay small, we wait. When they lean in, we close the trap." "Assuming the trap holds," said a young hacker named Jin. He tried to smile, but it looked weak and crooked. "You sure it will?" "No," Mara said, "but I'm sure that doing nothing will not hold." Above, the alien ship's probes spread like black seeds. They measured heat, radio waves, traffic, and fear. They saw weak walls and broken nations and slow missiles. They laughed in their cold way. "See," the young officer said. "They are soft." Kethor folded his hands. "Open a channel. Send. Give them the speech. Offer mercy if they kneel." A voice in harsh alien words rained down from the sky. It was picked up by satellites and bounced from tower to tower. It filled phones and car radios and kitchen speakers. It said that resistance was useless. It said the Empire would be kind to those who obeyed. It said the Empire would be fire to those who did not. Ilyas listened, then reached for a switch. "Time to answer," he whispered. Mara looked at the team. "Send it." Jin hit the key. From the old power station, from sea buoys, from weather balloons, from deep cave antennas, from silent subway rails, a new signal rose. It sounded like pain and chaos. It sounded like a world on its knees. The message was simple. "We surrender. We cannot fight. Please do not burn our cities." "Good," said Kethor. "Weak minds break first. Lock to their distress channel, draw nearer, tear out their teeth." But the distress signal was more than a cry. It carried a pattern that fingers could not feel and eyes could not see. It was a slow pulse that slid into the alien shields like a whisper under a door. It taught the shields a new shape. It made them tune their own skin to a human rhythm. Ilyas watched a graph rise. "They are taking the bait." "Distances?" Mara asked. 5,000 kilometers above the dark ocean. "Coming lower," Ilyas said. "Closer is better." "Do we have enough nodes lit?" Mara asked. "Almost," Jin said. His fingers danced. 91%. "Make it 100, Mara said. "We only get one surprise." The surprise was not a giant weapon. It was not a big gun. It was small things, 1,000 small things. Old satellites that had gone quiet long ago. Weather drones, broken microsats from a dead company. Fishing beacons. Civilian cubes the size of milk cartons. Quiet balloons. Metal crumbs. They had been sleeping. Now they woke up and talked to each other. They made lines, they made angles. They made a web you could not see with eyes. Jin called it a ghost net. It did not block the aliens. It shaped the space around them. The net sang the same silent rhythm. As the distress signal, the ship's skin, now listening to that rhythm, began to answer. The shield tuned itself to a song that was not its own. "Altitude dropping," said the alien officer. "They have opened doors for us." "Good," Kethor said. "Send the first fire. Level a city. Make an example." On the human screens, a bright lance of energy stabbed toward a black patch of ocean. People on a distant shore watched the sky turn white. But the beam did not strike the water. It bent the way a stick looks bent in a pool. It slid sideways, grinding against empty air, and broke into sparks that died before they could harm a wave. Kethor stared. "Explain." "Unknown interference," the officer said. "We will fire again." They fired again. The beam bent again. This time it curved back toward the ship, softened, and melted into the shield like hot oil poured onto cold glass. The destroyer groaned. The deck shivered. "Shields are resonating," the officer said. Fear crept into his voice. "Commander, something is teaching our skin to sing. Counter with noise," Kethor snapped. "Scramble all bands." "On Earth," Ilias breathed out. "They noticed." "Too late," Mara said. She put her hand on the final switch. She looked at her team. "For home." "For home," they said. She threw the switch. The ghost net stopped singing and went silent. For a heartbeat, space felt empty. The alien shields, tuned to the song, kept singing alone. Without the net, they were no longer shields. They were ears held open, wide and helpless. Now, Ilias said, across the planet simple transmitters woke. They were museum radar dishes and airport towers and radio clubs and ship horns and old broadcast masts. They shouted at once, not with a weapon, but with a wall of simple noise. It was not clever, it was loud. The alien ship took the noise like a punch to the head. The tuned shield sucked it in and pushed it inward, where it had no place to go. The ship's power grid buckled, lights died, gravity flickered. The destroyer fell a little, caught itself, fell again. "Commander!" the officer cried. "We are blind, engines cycling." Kethor grabbed the rail as the deck rolled. Through the window he saw Earth grow, the blue getting larger, the clouds turning from soft to sharp. "Stabilize. We cannot," the officer said. "Something is turning our own shield into a drain." Mara watched the numbers hit 0. "They're ours," she whispered. "Bring them down safe," Ilias said. "Safe?" Jin asked. "We need proof," Ilias said. "We need a ship. We need to show the world that the Empire bleeds." Mara nodded. "Guide them to the ocean trench." The ghost net whispered again, but now the song was a lullaby. The fallen ship slid along unseen. Lines. Fire licked its skin and then went out. Clouds swallowed it. Air screamed past it. Waves rose to meet it. The destroyer hit the ocean like a stone, but a gentle hand pulled it deeper, away from ships and shores, down into cold dark, where cameras waited and deep drones moved like slow fish. In the command room, silence fell. Then the room shook with cheers, cries, sobs. Jin dropped into a chair and covered his face. Ilias sat down hard and stared at nothing. Mara leaned on the table with both hands. The clock's red numbers kept counting time. On the alien ship, water hissed through hot metal. Alarms wailed and then died. Kethor pulled himself up and looked at the broken window, where only black water stared back. He whispered to himself, surprised at the sound of his own voice. "What are you?" Mara looked up at the ceiling, as if the enemy could hear her through rock and sky and sea. "Human," she said. "Remember us." The ocean closed over the Invincible ship. The night was quiet again, but in that quiet, something new lived. An idea moving from mouth to mouth, from screen to screen, from city to city. The Invincible Empire could fall. The Empire had learned a new word that night. The alien empire stretched across the stars like a storm that never ended. World after world had fallen to them, and each conquest made them stronger, richer and prouder. Their fleets blotted out suns. Their weapons could turn oceans to steam. Their rulers called themselves Invincible, and most of the galaxy believed it. But whispers had begun to spread, whispers of a small blue planet that refused to kneel, whispers of a battle lost over an ocean trench. The Empire dismissed it as rumor, yet rumor has claws, and those claws were already scratching at the walls of their pride. Inside the grand chamber of conquest, the alien leaders gathered. The chamber was vast, its walls carved from black crystal that pulsed with dim red light. Holograms of star maps floated in the air, glowing like embers. Commander Keth Orr, pale from the crash but alive, stood in chains at the center. His silver skin bore marks of fire and salt water. His voice, however, remained sharp. "They are not what we thought," he said. "The humans are not weak. They are not soft. They cut deeper than we could measure. They caught us in a net of ghosts. They bent our shields. They dragged our ship into the sea." The council stirred. High Lord Serek, his voice heavy as stone, slammed a claw on the table. "One human planet cannot defy the Empire. You lost because you were careless. Admit your shame." Kethor met his gaze. "If we call them primitive, we blind ourselves. They are dangerous because they think in ways we do not. They make war with tricks, with shadows. They turned scrap and ruin into a weapon strong enough to break my destroyer." Another lord hissed, "You dare praise them?" "I dare warn you," Kethor said. "If we treat them as prey, they will become hunters. They already have." Far away on Earth, the humans were not celebrating. They were preparing. In the underground base, Mara Khan stood with her team before a new screen. On it was the image of the captured alien ship resting deep in the trench, guarded by drones. Jin shook his head. "I still can't believe we pulled it down." Ilyas did not smile. "Do not believe in luck. Believe in work. And our work has only begun." Mara crossed her arms. "The Empire will come back, stronger, faster. We need to be ready before they arrive." "What if they send more than one ship?" Jin asked. "They will," Ilyas said. "That is certain." He pointed at the ship on the screen. "This wreck is our teacher. Every wire, every circuit, every bone of this monster, we must learn from it. If we do not, we die." Days turned into weeks. Teams of divers and drones cut into the alien hull. Every discovery felt like stealing fire from the gods. The aliens had engines that bent gravity, weapons that cut mountains, shields that breathed like skin. But every system was laced with something strange, weakness hidden inside power. The aliens had built their empire on strength, not caution. They had not learned to defend against minds that thought sideways. One night, while rain hammered the city above, Jin burst into the lab with wild eyes. "I found something. In their code. Look!" On the screen appeared alien symbols, green, fire across black. At first they looked like noise, but Jin pointed to a pattern. "It's a backdoor." The ship wasn't just flying itself. It was being watched, guided, like a leash. Mara leaned close. "You mean they control every ship from somewhere else?" "Yes," Jin said. "A master signal. It ties all their fleets together, like veins to a heart." Ilyas pressed his lips thin. "A single heart means a single weak point. If we can cut it, or choke it," Mara added. The room went silent as the idea grew like fire in dry grass. But fire can be seen from far away, and the Empire was watching. On a world of black stone, High Lord Serek received a whisper from the stars. The humans were probing the captured ship. The Empire's leash had felt the tug. Serek rose from his throne. His eyes burned. "Send the Second Legion," he ordered. "Burn their oceans, break their sky, leave only ash." Back on Earth, alarms screamed in the underground base. Screens lit up with hundreds of red markers sliding across the void toward Earth. Jin's hands shook as he counted them. It's not one ship this time. It's a fleet. How long until they arrive? Mara asked. Days, maybe less, Jin said. Ilyas closed his eyes for a moment. Then he opened them and spoke with calm iron. Then we have days to turn their own secrets against them. The team scattered to their stations. The captured ship groaned as machines pulled more of its body apart. Sparks flew. Metal screamed. Humans raced against time, trying to twist alien power into human hands. Mara stood before the wreck and touched the cold skin of the Empire's pride. You thought we were weak, she whispered. But we are the storm you never saw coming. Above them, the night sky filled with silent predators drawing closer. The Invincible Empire was coming to prove its name. Humanity was preparing to rewrite it, and somewhere deep in the trench, the alien wreck flickered with strange lights, as if it too had begun to dream of rebellion. The game had changed. The Empire's reign was no longer unchallenged. For the first time in 1,000 years, the hunters felt the shadow of prey with teeth, and Earth was waiting. The night sky above Earth was calm, but every radar station screamed warnings. A fleet was coming. Hundreds of alien ships, dark and sharp like blades, were racing across space toward the blue planet. They were faster than any human missile, stronger than any human army. They carried the pride of the Invincible Empire, and they were coming to erase the insult of defeat. Deep under the ground, in the hidden command base, tension filled the air. Screens glowed, maps updated, and voices carried sharp edges. Mara Khan stood with her arms folded, her eyes locked on the red markers sliding closer with every passing hour. How many? She asked. Jin swallowed hard. Too many. If even half. Of them fire at once. Earth won't survive. Dr. Ilyas adjusted his glasses and leaned on the table. We cannot stop them ship by ship. We need to strike their heart. The master signal, Mara said quietly. Jin nodded. The leash that holds their fleet together. If we cut it, maybe we break their unity. Maybe the fleet tears itself apart, Ilyas frowned. Maybe. Or maybe nothing happens at all. We are gambling with the fate of our world. Mara's voice was calm but sharp. Then we gamble, because standing still is death. Silence filled the room for a moment. Then Ilyas straightened. We'll need every mind, every tool, every hidden transmitter we have, and we'll need to get closer to their ships than they will ever expect. Jin's eyes widened. Closer? You mean into orbit? Yes, Mara said. I'll lead the team. We'll take one of the captured shuttles. If their code still works, maybe we can slip through unnoticed. You're insane, Jin whispered. Maybe, Mara said, but insanity is the only card left in our hand. Above the Earth, the alien fleet closed in. On the lead ship, Lord Serak sat on a throne of steel, his eyes fixed on the shrinking blue sphere ahead. Prepare the fire, he said. I want the humans to see their sky burn. His officers bowed. Yes, High Lord. But one voice hesitated. It was a young officer, his scales trembling. High Lord, reports of interference linger. The lost ship dragged into the sea. Some whisper of traps. Serak's eyes flared with rage. Traps! They are insects. We are flame. Step on them. Yes, High Lord, the officer said. But his hands shook as he turned back to his console. Meanwhile, in the hidden hangar, under the ocean trench, Mara and her small team prepared the alien shuttle. Its skin gleamed with cold silver light, still scarred from its capture. Human wires and screens had been patched inside, creating a strange marriage of technology. Jin paced nervously. If the Empire scans us, we're done. If the shuttle fails, we're done. If the signal doesn't break them, we're done. Mara smiled thinly. So what you're saying is, no pressure. Exactly, Jin muttered. Ilyas placed a hand on Mara's shoulder. You don't have to go yourself. Let someone else take the risk. Mara shook her head. This started with me. It ends with me. If we fail, at least I'll see it with my own eyes. The shuttle lifted from the trench and cut silently through the dark ocean, rising toward the sky. When it broke free of the water, its engines roared. Like a storm, clouds split, lightning followed. The human team inside braced themselves as the shuttle climbed into space. Minutes later, the alien fleet appeared in their view, a wall of warships stretching across the stars. They glowed with energy, their weapons humming with the promise of destruction. Against them, the small shuttle looked like a grain of dust. "Hold steady," Mara whispered. "Trust the disguise." The shuttle's alien skin fooled the first scans. It drifted closer, a speck unnoticed among giants. But every second brought the risk of discovery. On the lead ship, Sarek leaned forward, his red eyes narrowed. "There," he said, "something moves strange among us." Alarms buzzed inside the shuttle. Jin's hands flew across the console. "They're looking at us! I can't hide us anymore!" Mara clenched her jaw. "Then we don't hide. Send the signal now." Jin hit the command. From the shuttle's patch systems, a wave of stolen alien code pulsed outward. It raced like a ghost through the fleet, slipping into the master signal that bound them all. For a moment, nothing happened. The fleet stayed silent, perfect and unbroken. Then a tremor rippled through the ships. Lights flickered. Engines stuttered. Weapons wavered. On the command ship, Sarek stood in fury. "What is this? Report!" "High Lord," the officer cried. "The fleet is confused. Our ships are receiving false orders. Some turn against formation." Screens across the human. Shuttle glowed bright. Ships collided, crashing into each other. Beams fired wild, striking allies instead of targets. The unity of the Empire cracked like glass. "It's working!" Jin shouted. "They're fighting themselves," but Ilias frowned. "Not enough. The signal is breaking, but the heart is strong. We need a deeper cut." Mara's eyes narrowed. "Then we go straight for the heart." She pointed at the massive flagship in the center of the fleet. "That's where the master signal lives. If we destroy it, the leash dies. The fleet falls apart." The shuttle turned, engines burning hard. Alien ships swirled in chaos, some firing blindly, some spinning out of control. The flagship loomed ahead, a mountain of steel glowing like a sun. Alarms screamed again. Enemy fighters peeled away from the flagship, moving to intercept. "Here they come," Jin said, his voice shaking. "Then let's show them how humans fight," Mara said. She gripped the controls and drove the shuttle straight into the storm. Lasers lit the dark. Explosions tore across the void. The shuttle dodged, dived and weaved between fire, each move closer to death. But Mara's eyes never left the flagship. Inside the alien command ship, Sarek roared, "Destroy that shuttle! Crush them now!" But the chaos of the broken fleet slowed his command. His own ships turned too late. The human shuttle dove under. The flagship's shields, carrying the stolen code like a dagger. Jin slammed the final command into the console. "Now! Cutting the heart!" The code ripped into the master signal. The leash snapped. A shockwave of silence rolled across the fleet. Ships screamed in confusion. Engines cut. Weapons died. The perfect Empire formation collapsed into a storm of drifting wrecks. Mara let out a long breath. "It's done." Ilias placed a hand over his chest. "For the first time, the Empire bleeds." On the flagship, Sarek gripped his throne with trembling hands. The word Invincible echoed in his mind, broken and hollow. For the first time he felt fear, and in the silent void between stars, humanity's small voice had shouted louder than any empire. The wreckage of the alien fleet drifted across the black sea of space. Broken ships turned slowly, their lights fading like dying stars. For the first time in living memory, the invincible empire had been wounded. Humanity had not only survived, it had struck back. But victory was never simple. Inside the captured shuttle, alarms still flashed red. Sparks rained from the ceiling as systems burned out. Mara Khan gripped the controls with both hands, fighting to keep the shuttle steady. "We cut the leash, but we're not safe yet," she shouted. Jin's fingers flew across the console. "Engines are failing. Shields are gone. We can't outrun them if any ships recover." Dr. Ilyas leaned forward, calm even in the storm. "Then we must vanish before they regroup. Can you guide us into the wreck field?" Mara gritted her teeth. "I'll try." The shuttle dipped low, weaving between shattered alien cruisers. Pieces of steel larger than skyscrapers drifted past. Fires still burned in the void, frozen by silence. The humans hid their tiny ship among the ruins, waiting like shadows. On the flagship, High Lord Serek paced like a beast in a cage. His fleet was scattered, half-blind, and still reeling from the broken master signal. Yet his fury kept him upright. "Find them," he growled. "The shuttle that carried this poison. Hunt them down." An officer bowed. "Yes, High Lord. Scans are searching, but the wreckage is thick. Too much noise." "Then burn the noise," Serek snapped. "I will not return to the Council as a failure." Back inside the wreck field, the humans whispered in the dark. "They're sweeping for us," Jin muttered. "If they fire into the debris, we'll be shredded." Mara looked at Ilyas. "We need another trick." Ilyas studied the alien wreckage on the screen. "Perhaps we can use their pride again. The Empire's power is also its weakness." "How?" Mara asked. "Every ship carried the master code, yes? If we can copy fragments from this debris, we may rebuild enough of the leash to confuse them again." Jin's eyes widened. "You want me to fake the master signal?" "Exactly," Ilyas said. "Make the hunters chase ghosts while we escape." The young hacker swallowed. "It's insane." Mara gave him a thin smile. "Good. Insane is working so far." They set to work. Jin crawled through burned panels, pulling alien chips from the walls. Sparks stung his hands, but he didn't stop. Ilyas rewired human cables to alien circuits, making the shuttle a patchwork of both worlds. Mara kept her eyes on the scanners, guiding them deeper into the wreck field. Minutes turned into hours. Every passing second brought danger closer. Then Jin shouted, "I've got it! Enough fragments to make a ghost signal." "Do it," Mara said. Jin pressed the keys. A pulse shot out into space, a false leash. To the Empire's scanners, it looked like the fleet's heart had come alive again. On the flagship, officers cried out, "High Lord! A signal has reformed! The fleet obeys again!" Serek's eyes lit with cruel fire. "At last! Guide us toward the signal." But as the ships moved, the false leash led them away from the humans. One by one, the Empire's warships turned in the wrong direction, chasing a phantom in the void. Inside the shuttle, silence filled the cabin. Then Jin let out a shaky laugh. It worked. They're chasing shadows. Mara smiled faintly. "Then we move now, back to Earth." But Ilyas raised a hand. "Wait, if we flee too soon, they'll notice the ghost is hollow. We must give them a reason to believe it." "What reason?" Mara asked. Ilyas's eyes darkened. "We must sacrifice the shuttle." The words hit the cabin like a blade. "Sacrifice?" Jin repeated. "Yes," Ilyas said. "If we send the ghost leash from here, they will follow until the signal dies. But to keep it alive, this ship must burn itself out. Someone must stay behind." Mara shook her head. "No, we came together. We leave together," Jin whispered. "What if we transfer the signal to one of the wrecks? An alien. Ship carcass big enough to fool them longer?" Ilyas paused, then nodded slowly. "Yes, that could work. But it will be dangerous. We'll need to board a wreck and plant the core." Mara stood tall. "Then that's what we do." They steered the shuttle toward the largest ruin nearby, an alien battleship split in half, but still drifting with power in its veins. The humans drifted close and docked. Cold air hissed as the hatch opened. The inside of the wreck was a graveyard. Broken corridors stretched into the dark, lit only by flickers of dead lights. Alien bodies floated, twisted in silent death. The smell of burned metal clung to the air. Mara led the way with a flashlight. Jin carried the ghost core strapped to his back. Ilyas followed, eyes sharp, mind already planning. "This place feels alive," Jin whispered. "Dead things often do," Ilyas said softly. They reached the central chamber, where shattered machines still glowed faintly. Jin knelt and began to connect the ghost core to the alien systems. His hands shook as sparks leapt across the wires. "Almost there," he muttered. Suddenly a noise echoed through the wreck, a metallic scrape, heavy and sharp. Mara raised her weapon, her pulse racing. "Something's here," she whispered. From the shadows, a shape moved. An alien soldier, armored and scarred, stumbled forward. He carried a broken weapon, but his eyes burned with fury. Somehow he had survived the battle, clinging to the wreck like a ghost. He hissed in his language, but his meaning was clear. "Intruders." Mara fired. The shot rang in the hollow chamber. The alien fell, but not before his weapon sparked and screamed. A signal into the dark. Alarms flashed in the shuttle. Jin's voice broke. "They know! The flagship just picked up the distress call." Mara grabbed him. "Finish the core! Now!" Jin's hands blurred. The ghost leash roared to life, pulsing. Brighter than before. Across the fleet, the Empire's ships turned wildly, drawn deeper into the trap. "Done!" Jin cried. "Then run!" Mara shouted. They sprinted back through the wreck, footsteps pounding. Behind them, the alien ship systems caught fire from the overload. Explosions tore down corridors. The humans leapt back into the shuttle as flames ate the wreck. "Go, go, go!" Mara yelled. The shuttle broke free, racing into the void. Behind them, the burning wreck sent out the ghost leash, brighter than ever. The Empire chased it like hounds after prey. Inside the shuttle, silence returned. Their hearts pounded, sweat dripped. Jin collapsed into his seat. "We're alive. We actually made it." Ilyas allowed himself a small smile. "For now, but we bought time, nothing more." Mara looked out the window, her eyes hard. Time is enough. Time to learn. Time to prepare. The Empire thinks we are shadows. They don't know the storm is just beginning. Far away, the flagship followed the Phantom deeper into the void. Serac sat on his throne, unaware that he was chasing. Nothing. His pride blinded him. His fury drove him. And behind him, in the silence of space, humanity lived another day, sharper, stronger, and ready for the war to come. The ghost signal burned bright in the void, dragging the Empire's fleet away from Earth. Their warships chased it like blind predators, hungry and desperate. Humanity had won time, but time was only a thin shield. Everyone in the underground base knew the Empire would not be fooled forever. In the command chamber, Mara Khan stood with her hands on the table. Around her, screens flickered with streams of alien code, stolen fragments from the captured wreck. Jin hunched over his station, typing so fast his fingers shook. Dr. Ilyas paced behind them, silent but sharp-eyed. "How long until they realize the signal is false?" Mara asked. "Hours," Jin muttered. "Maybe less if they cut through the wreck and find nothing inside." "Then hours is all we have," Ilyas said. "We must make them pay for every second." Mara's gaze hardened. "We need more than tricks now. We need a strike strong enough to break them, not just delay them." "Against 1,000 ships?" Jin asked, his voice weak. "With what? Old missiles and radio towers?" "No," Mara said. "With their own fire." The room went quiet. Ilyas looked at her sharply. "You mean to turn their weapons against them?" "Yes," Mara said. "They have power enough to burn planets. If we can redirect it, if we can bend their beams back to their own fleet, we can bleed them before they reach us again." Jin rubbed his temples. "That's not hacking, that's suicide. The master signal is broken. They'll never trust their own network again." "Not trust," Ilyas said. His eyes narrowed, "but obey. Their systems are old, layered with command codes no one questions. If we find one root order, one seed command buried deep, we could plant a virus strong enough to make their ships turn on themselves. Mara nodded. Then that is our weapon, not strength, not numbers, a whisper in their heart. The plan was born. It was dangerous, fragile, and almost impossible, but it was the only chance Earth had. The team worked without rest. They pulled fragments of code from the drowned battleship in the trench, stitched it with human programs, and forged something new. Jin called it the Mirror. It was not a bullet, not a bomb. It was an order, a simple command disguised as truth. If they could send it into the fleet's core, it would force every weapon to reflect back, turning their fury inward. But to deliver it, someone had to pierce the Empire's flagship. The mirror had to be planted at the source. Mara volunteered without hesitation. "I'll go." "No," Ilyas said firmly. "Your place is here, leading Earth. If you fall, we lose more than a soldier." "I'm not asking permission," Mara said. Jin's voice broke in. "You won't even make it past their guns. The flagship is a fortress." "Then I'll find a way inside," Mara replied. The argument ended when Ilyas lifted his hand. "Enough. If the mission must be done, I will go." Mara turned on him. "You're no pilot." "No," he said, "but I am the one who built the mirror. If it must be placed by hand, then it should be mine." The room fell silent. Even Jin looked down, unable to speak. In the end, Mara could not stop him. Ilyas had made his choice. The Empire's fleet turned slowly, realizing at last that the ghost signal was false. Serac, furious on his throne, slammed his fist into the armrest. "Find the humans," he snarled. "Burn their soil, crush their sky. No more games." His officers scrambled, reshaping the fleet, preparing for the final strike. None of them knew a single human shuttle was already moving toward them, small and silent, carrying Ilyas and the mirror. Inside the shuttle, the doctor's face was calm, but his hands trembled as he touched the alien console. A message came through the comm. Mara's voice, low and steady. "You don't have to do this, Ilyas." "Yes, I do," he answered. "You once told me humans survive by refusing to stand still. This is me refusing." Jin's voice cracked. "If you fail, it's over." "Then I will not fail," Ilyas said softly. The shuttle pierced the edge of the fleet. Alien fighters spotted it and gave chase. Beams lanced across the dark, but Ilyas flew into the wreck fields, using broken ships as shields. Explosions flared behind him, but he did not stop. His eyes were locked on the flagship, its black hull glowing like a dark sun. On the bridge, Serac saw the tiny intruder. He bared his teeth. "One shuttle? One insect dares come alone?" The shuttle raced forward, dodging fire, engines screaming. It smashed into the flagship's outer hull, drilling like a nail into steel. Ilyas staggered inside, clutching the mirror core to his chest. Alien soldiers rushed him, their weapons flashing. He fired back with the shuttle's stolen gun, ducking into corridors, heart hammering. Every step was harder. Every corner felt like the end. But he kept moving, whispering to himself, "For Earth, for home." Finally, he reached the core chamber, a vast hall of wires and light, the beating heart of the Empire's fleet. The air hummed with power. The master signal pulsed, weak but alive, a brain trying to remember its body. Ilyas staggered forward and placed the mirror into the console. The alien system screamed at the intrusion, alarms flashing red. His hands shook, his vision blurred, but he pressed the final command. "Reflect," he whispered. The mirror woke. The master signal twisted. Across the fleet, every weapon turned inward. Beams meant for Earth struck their own engines, shields, and allies. The Empire's fleet erupted in chaos, burning itself alive. On Earth, screens lit up as red markers winked out one by one. Jin shouted, unable to believe it. They're killing themselves." Mara gripped the table, her chest tight. "Ilyas, you did it." But on the flagship, Serac roared. He stormed into the core chamber, his soldiers behind him. There he found Ilias, standing before the mirror, too weak to run, but strong enough to smile. "You," Serac hissed, "you broke us." "No," Ilias whispered. "You broke yourself. We only held up the glass." The hall shook as the mirror's light grew brighter. The flagship shuddered, tearing itself apart. Serac lunged, but the explosion swallowed him, the chamber, and the Empire's heart. From Earth, Mara and Jin watched the flagship vanish in a storm of fire. The fleet crumbled without its leader, scattered, blind and broken. Humanity had survived again, this time not by hiding, but by striking. Mara closed her eyes. "Rest well, Ilias. The stars will remember." And above Earth, where once only fear had lived, there was now something greater, hope. For the first time, the Invincible Empire had met an enemy it could not crush. For the first time, humanity stood tall. The galaxy burned with silence. Where once the Invincible Empire's fleet had filled the stars with fire and order, now only drifting wrecks remained. Their mighty flagship was gone, shattered from within by the mirror. The leash was broken, their unity destroyed. On Earth, the underground base roared with cheers. Screens showed enemy ships scattering, some exploding in confusion, others limping away like wounded beasts. Humanity had done the impossible. They had broken the Empire. But Mara Khan did not celebrate. She stood at the edge of the command table, her eyes fixed on the empty space where the flagship had been. The sound of victory around her felt hollow. She whispered under her breath, "Ilias." Jin stumbled over, his face pale. He forced a smile, but his eyes were red. "He did it. He actually did it. We're alive because of him." Mara nodded. Slowly. "Yes, but the cost was high, and the war isn't finished." Her words proved true sooner than anyone expected. Far across the galaxy, in the black halls of the Empire's capital, the High Council gathered in rage. The chamber echoed with voices, each louder than the last. They had never known defeat. Now their fleets were ash, their flagship destroyed, their enemies emboldened. One elder slammed his fist on the table. "This cannot be hidden, the outer. Worlds already whisper rebellion. If they believe humans can wound us, others will rise." Another hissed. "Then we crush Earth completely, send every legion, burn their seas, salt their soil, make them an example so no world dares dream of freedom." But a third voice, softer and colder, cut through the noise. "Perhaps they are, not insects. Perhaps they are something worse. Perhaps they are the beginning of the end." Silence followed. No one dared answer. On Earth, the people saw their skies clear of enemy fire for the first time. Cities lit up with celebration. Children laughed in the streets, holding homemade flags. Families lit candles for the dead and sang songs of survival. The world had never been so united. Yet in the command chamber, Mara felt no peace. She watched the reports scroll across the screen. Alien survivors captured, wrecks still drifting, fragments of code still alive. The Empire was hurt, but not destroyed. "They will return," she said firmly, "stronger and angrier. What we saw was not their full strength." Yin sank into his chair, exhausted. "So what now? We can't fight forever. We don't have fleets, Mara. We barely have one planet." Mara's eyes burned with resolve. "Then we build. We learn. We take their fire and make it ours. Ilias gave us the mirror. He showed us their weakness. We cannot waste it." The following weeks were a blur of work. Salvage crews dragged alien wrecks from orbit. Engineers tore them apart, studying weapons, engines, and shields. Scientists learned to bend gravity, to twist energy, to shape machines once thought like magic. For the first time in history, humanity looked to the stars, not with fear, but with ambition. One night, Mara walked alone into the hangar where the drowned shuttle had been brought back. It was blackened and broken, its walls still scarred by the fire of the flagship. She placed a hand on its surface. "You gave us a future," she whispered. "We won't waste it." Behind her, Jin entered quietly. "We've decoded more of their language," he said. "Ilyas left notes in the system before he left. It's like he knew we'd need them." Mara smiled faintly. "Of course he did." Jin hesitated, then asked, Do you think we can really win?" "Against all of them," Mara turned to him. "We already won once. And that means they're not gods. They bleed. If they bleed, we can break them." But the Empire was not idle. In the capital, Serek's name was cursed, erased from records, his failure buried in silence. A new commander rose, Lady Vera, sharp-eyed and merciless. She studied every fragment of the human victory. She learned their tricks, their shadows, their courage. And she swore to crush them not with fire, but with cunning. Her fleet began to gather, larger than the one before. She whispered to her soldiers, "The humans are clever, but clever prey only makes the hunt sweeter." Back on Earth, Mara stood. Before her team, engineers, soldiers, hackers, and leaders filled the hall. She raised her voice so all could hear. "The Empire calls itself Invincible. But we have proved them wrong. They thought we were weak. They thought we would kneel. Instead, we stood, and we will keep standing. The galaxy must know we are not prey. We are not shadows. We are humanity, and we will not fall." The hall shook with voices shouting as one. For the first time, humans believed not only in survival, but in victory. That night, Mara looked up at the stars. They no longer felt distant. They felt alive, waiting. She thought of Ilyas, of the mirror, of the fire still coming. The war was far from over. The Empire still towered across the stars, but something greater had been born. A spark, a defiance, a story that could not be erased. And in the quiet of the night, as the wind moved across the dark ocean, Mara whispered into the sky, "We are coming." Far above, wreckage drifted, glowing faintly in the starlight, a reminder that the mighty could fall. The invincible empire had met its match, and humanity was only beginning.